Hey guys, welcome back if you're new here. My name is Becca and today I have an anti haul for you guys. So an anti haul is a video format that is originally from the beauty community, I believe, and it is all about the products, or in this case books, that you will not be buying. Now the first time I saw this video in the book community, it was from Julie from Pages and Pens, so I will of course link her channel down below. I believe I have done 2 of these videos in the past, although I don't think I did one at all last year, so it has been a hot minute since I brought you guys an anti haul. However, usually on this day in my video schedule I would be bringing you a book haul, but for once I have actually managed to not acquire very many books, so I thought I would do the opposite instead. So I do only have 6 books to talk to you guys about today. I'll be telling you what they are, what I know that they're about, and the reasons that I will not be reading them. Now this list was incredibly hard for me to put together, which is why there are only 6 books on it, because I am very much a never say never person. I like to give everything a fair chance. You guys may have heard me mention in the past I do have this unrealistic idea that across my lifetime I would like to read every book, and the reason for that is that I not necessarily like to have an opinion on things, but I don't like to be uninformed on things. So I would much rather read a book and not like it so that I can have a well-reasoned opinion with evidence and receipts, rather than just say I don't want to read that book because it looks trash. However, of course, there are quite a few books out there that I'm just generally not interested in. It is a very instinctual thing for me. For the most part, I'm willing to give a lot of things, a lot of books, a try, but with these, not only have the synopses just not interested me at all, but also both positive and negative reviews on these books have made it so that I just really don't think that I will ever be interested in reading them. So kicking off with the books I will not buy and I will not read, I'm going to start with the only contemporary book on this list, and that is Red, White and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. This is an incredibly popular male-male romance story between the son of the President of the United States and a prince from the UK royal family. Now this book has received a lot of hype. There are also quite a few rant reviews out there. I was actually incredibly interested in reading this on the back of all the really good reviews of this book. However, after some time I did begin to notice a little bit of discordance within reviews on this book, and that seems to be between US and UK reviewers. A lot of people who've read it who are from the US do seem to really love this book. They think that it's a really cute, fluffy, adorable male-male romance, which I can absolutely get behind. You guys know that I do not read a lot of contemporary fiction. However, I do make a lot of exceptions, especially if there is a book that seems to be one of the best of its genre. So I was interested in reading this. However, it did seem that UK reviewers were not quite so into this book as the US folks were. And the reason for that is that the representation of the UK in this book and of the prince are not realistic. Now, I typically don't mind too much contemporary that isn't realistic. However, as somebody from the UK, I do think that it would annoy me having the UK misrepresented in this character, just because it would annoy me that the author of this book views the UK a certain way that is really not the way that the UK actually is. So despite me believing that this is actually quite a cute male-male romance, despite me being initially interested in this book, my interest has waned over the last few months and I've decided that I will not be picking it up. So heading into the rest of the books, which are all fantasy, first up we have Acre, So Dark and Lonely by Bridget Camera. This is a young adult fantasy that was released in 2019. It was incredibly popular. A lot of people were reading it. A lot of people loved it. And I believe the sequel has just been released or is going to be released in the coming months. So what I know about this is that it is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. It follows a girl who has cerebral palsy in Washington, and she gets taken to a fantasy world. The prince tries to make her fall in love with him to break the curse on him that turns him into a beast, or some sort of variation of that. Now, I love me a Beauty and the Beast retelling. You guys know I love A Court of Thorns and Roses. Beauty and the Beast is one of my favorite Disney movies. I also really like the French adaptation of Beauty and the Beast, La Belle et la Bête, and overall anything Beauty and the Beast related I can't wait to get my hands on. Now the reason that I don't want to read this is not quite so clear cut. When it was released I just had no interest in it. Like I said, a lot of books on this list are purely instinctual, and this is just one that has never appealed to me, which is really strange because it is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. I've heard tons of rave reviews on this book. A lot of my friends do really like this book. For some reason it's just not grabbing my attention. And I have been told by Gavin from How to Train Your Gavin that while he did enjoy A Curse So Dark and Lonely, he doesn't think that the writing style is going to be my thing, and he doesn't think I'm going to really like the story. Next up we have Sodom the Stars by Amy Rose Capessa and Corey McCarthy. I said that the remaining books in this video would be fantasy. This one is a science fiction, it's young adult, and it is the sequel to Once and Future, which is a King Arthur retelling that is set in the future, it's set in space, and in this narrative King Arthur is continuously reincarnated until the reincarnation of King Arthur can complete the task that the original King Arthur and all of the subsequent reincarnations failed to accomplish. Now I have read Once and Future, I had very high hopes going into it. I really love the legend of King Arthur. I have yet to read a good retelling, but I do love the original legend and how expansive it is and how much lore it contains. So I was really excited to read this one. However, I did find that it was very campy, very over the top. The dialogue was cheesy, the characters did not feel realistic, and it very much felt like adults trying to force themselves into the voice of teenagers. When I did originally read Once and Future, I did think that the main reason that I didn't like it was because of how campy and fun and space opera the story was. However, after reading Aurora Rising and Aurora Burning by J. Kristoff and Amy Kaufman, which is an incredibly extra, incredibly over-the-top, melodramatic, campy sci-fi, I have discovered that Once and Future is actually just not that good, and it is not that I don't like campy space stories. So even though up until this month I was unsure as to whether I would be reading Sodom the Stars just to wrap up the duology, I can now confirm I will not be doing that. And while we are on the topic of Sodom the Stars, actually, let me know if you would like me to do a video of series that I probably won't continue, because I've only just realised that this book would probably be better in a video like that. Next up we have The Beautiful by Renee Ahdieh, which was once again a book that I was actually interested in at its time of release last year. Now I don't actually know too much about this one. I do know that it is a historical fantasy and it takes place in a world where there are vampires. Now this book was marketed as the vampire renaissance. Vampires were making a comeback. Vampires were going to be cool again. We were going to fall in love with vampires again. I believe that the plotline of this follows this girl in, I think it's 1800s Paris, but I could be wrong on that, and she does get taken to a convent for some reason. She meets a guy, she starts to fall in love with him. I'm assuming that he is a vampire. Now with all the emphasis being put on this series being a vampire series, I was expecting vampires from this book. However, based on all of the reviews and things that people have told me when I have briefly mentioned The Beautiful, I have discovered that The Beautiful does not actually contain vampires. I think that vampires are heavily hinted at throughout the book, but I don't think they really make an appearance in the storyline. This is one that I would probably say I will never say never on. There is a chance in the future that I will pick up The Beautiful, I will read it, and I will enjoy it. I just don't really have any interest in doing that right now. I don't own the book, so it's not on my immediate TBR, and for the moment I will not be reading or purchasing The Beautiful. Then we have The Shadows Between Us by Trisha Levenseller. This is once again a book that I was very interested in reading. This is a 2020 release and it has been marketed as a Slytherin romance. I believe that the plot of this one is that we have a girl who is trying to kill the Shadow King, but somebody else is also trying to kill the Shadow King, and so she then has to keep him alive for long enough so that she can be the person who kills him instead of this other person who's trying to assassinate him. And I do believe that there is a romance in there, assumedly between the main character and the Shadow King. Now all you need to say to get me interested in a book is either dark fairy romance, which this isn't, but that's just one of the things I'm really interested in, or Slytherin romance, which this book is supposed to be. However, my good friend Ashley from A Frolic Through Fiction recently read this book. She gave it 2 stars. She said that it was incredibly simplistic, it was nowhere near as dark as it was supposed to be, and she did not really vibe with it. Now Ashley is my soul sister when it comes to dark romances. We eat that shit up, and with Ashley reading this and saying that it did not deliver on the majority of the things that it promised, I'm actually going to be giving this one a miss, and I'm no longer interested in reading it. And then the final book we have in this video, I'm not even sure what genre this would necessarily be categorized as, but it is The 10,000 Doors of January by Alex E. Harrow. This was a 2019 adult release that people absolutely lost their minds over. Now I believe that this book may be categorized as literary fiction, but it does have a magical element in there. I believe it's a fabulous book. It has an absolutely stunning cover. Like, I cannot deny the beauty of this book. However, based on my own personal reading tastes, I just don't think that this one is going to be one for me. Now the plot of this I'm really not too sure on. I know that it's set around the 1900s, and I know it involves a girl who follows a book, so it's a book within a book type story. I also believe that this book is beautifully written with a wonderful poetic writing style, which is something that I do love. However, it is the surrealism that bothers me, because surrealism is just not something that I can ever wrap my head around. I have discussed in a video recently, I think it was the most intimidated books on my TBR, how I didn't really love the Night Circus because of how vague everything was, and because of that I am very intimidated by the Starless Sea, and I feel like the 10,000 Doors of January does have very similar vibes to the way that Erin Morgenstern writes. I expect that there are going to be a lot of vague elements in this book, and it's just not something that I can ever wrap my head around. Surrealism, magical realism is just not for me. I've tried many magical realism books. The only magical realism author that I actually like is Haruki Murakami, because for some reason it just works for me. But aside from that, every book that I've read that is surrealist goes right over my head and just leaves me feeling really dissatisfied, because I do like my books to have a solid conclusion. I like them to be very logic based, and this genre just does not provide that for me, so I don't think that the 10,000 Doors of January is a good fit for my personal reading tastes. So those are the 6 books that I will not be buying and will not be reading. Honestly, there is absolutely no tea and no shade in this video, just based on my own personal reading tastes. I will not be reading the books that I've mentioned, but do please let me know in my comments if there are any books that are incredibly hyped that you guys won't be reading. But aside from that, please don't forget to like this video if you liked it, and subscribe if you want to. If you head into my description box, you will find a link to my Goodreads, Instagram, and Twitter if you'd like to follow me on any of those, as well as a link to my Bookish body water and candle website, the Instagram for that, and 10% off discount code. But that's it from me today, guys. Bye!
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you'll go where nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.